What is going on, Metaverse? In this episode of Annie Knows, I'm pleased to be joined by a very special guest today, Kieran Warwick, shitposter extraordinaire, champion of ETH Lizards, the CEO of Illuvium, and really a very big reason of why I decided to make Web3 gaming my personal crusade last year. Kieran, it's great to talk to you today. And aside from what's probably liquid coffee in your veins right now that's keeping you going, how are you doing overall?
Yeah, doing not too bad. It's been a pretty crazy ride since coming back from the conference. But I love chatting to you guys. I know how passionate you are about Illuvium. I know how excited you are. Most of you, we gave beta access, so you've been teased a little bit of the universe, and yeah, I'm just happy to jump on and talk to you, Annie.
Yeah, absolutely looking forward to it. And I think, one of the biggest topics that we've been talking about in the space for the past few weeks is really this concept of the IBG, or the interoperable blockchain game. This is a term that I think you coined when Andrew was on the cast with TSG and Will and I a few weeks back. He mentioned you guys have been really talking about the branding of how we cast Illuvium when you're connecting all of these elements between the overworld, the arena, Illuvium Zero with the lands. So I think the term itself is brand new, but you guys have been working on building this for over a year and a half now. What are some of the big challenges that you're having to overcome to make that a reality?
There haven't actually been too many. So I would highlight two of them. The first one is cross-platform and utilizing two different engines. So Illuvium Zero is a mobile game that is being built on Unity, whereas the Overworld and the Arena games are being built on UE5. So there's a little bit of complexity there in making the seamless connection from the overworld, where you can travel into Illuvium Zero and then you can travel into Arena. So that I guess is one challenge, but again, the game design team is already thinking up ways, and I think they'll overcome that pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second one is the complexity that comes with our full vision that we have. The short term is obviously getting out these three games that we've been talking about: Illuvium Zero, Arena, and Overworld. All of that is coming in terms of at least an alpha or a beta form by the end of this year. And I say that because I want to give ourselves a ton of buffer. They're really, really close.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been a challenge to interconnect all of those. As you know, Illuvium Zero powers the entire economy across all of the games that we plan to build in the universe. Overworld is where you capture the assets that are usable in, again, all of the games across the universe. And so just connecting up those three games in a way where even Arena is basically the battle system that you use in the overworld, which is that's when the penny dropped for me. That's that first interoperability of two genres where you're all of a sudden in a creature capturer and then you're ported straight into an auto battler. And it's like, I love both of these games, but that was like instant, and that's when it really hit me. And I immediately, Aaron's been sick for a couple of months. Like, the guy just went ballistic, right? Like, he just went so hard, and it was a couple of unfortunate things that happened to him. It's actually, all three of us have now been in hospital at some stage throughout this journey.
Taking a physical toll.
But once I got him and sat him down and said, dude, like, I need to extract this vision out of your head, because I've just played it and I'm like, you're not putting down what's in your head here. Like, and he's like, I've been trying to tell you this for 2 years, right? Like, this is what keeps me up at night. I've got to build out 9 games that are all interoperable, all seamlessly connected, utilizing the same token, the same assets. Do you realize how complex that is? And I was like, 9 games. Sorry, what? Right? Like this is and again, like we tease things out and we talk all the time. We're brothers. We just talk shit and whatever. But yes, we've talked about other games, but the dude is doing it in his head, right? And not just in his head. He's got thousands and thousands of pages of game design documents where he's thinking about this 10, 15, 20-year vision of what if we brought all of these nostalgic games that we loved as kids, we brought them together in a new age, modern style of graphics, which is where Grant comes in, and then mash them all together. That is extremely complex. And I'm like, well, now you said it. So I'm going out there and I'm going to tell the world that this is what we're going to do. And that's when I realized this is a new genre. It's essentially a genre that mashes any amount of gaming genres together and connects them together. And so that's where we got the IBG term from.
Yeah, it's maybe somewhat akin to like a multiverse concept within the Illuvium landscape overall. When you talk about the challenges that Aaron's got with the design skills, that's actually the biggest concern and risk that I saw with this whole concept. So when we talk about intra-game balance of characters, and let's say you've got a Squiz on one side and he's got all this metadata around him for the auto battler and for the overworld, and then all of a sudden we move over into a racing game or a first-person shooter or something. You've got to make sure that you have an appropriate balance in that new game as well with him, and you want to make sure that he's got that same kind of feel and take on the character as you port him over into a new world. So what is the approach that you guys are taking? Will it be more, we'll create the additional metadata for a new title on the characters later on, or are we going to try and do some kind of balance where Squiz's speed is always a 12 and Ramfire's is a 20 or something to that effect?
Yeah, so the way that he explained it to me is that they'll always have the same stats. We can't go around saying that an asset is good in one game, but then it gets decreased or increased in another game. So we need to keep it balanced in the sense that a player owns an NFT, and therefore that NFT should be the same quality or the same power, if you will, across all of the different games. And so we put how we run the auto battler is how we would run the balancing in the racing game and pretty much every other game, where we put the characters through a simulator and it runs millions and millions and millions of times, and we optimize those stats so that every single character is balanced, right? So if you think about it, because we have this tiered system and stage system, as long as we keep that same system across the board, which we obviously are going to do, if you have a Ramfire, right, which is a tier 5 stage 3, that's one of our most powerful characters. When you go into the Mario Kart game, it doesn't necessarily need to even use the same stats, right? We can, like meaning the stats don't need to change, but they also don't need to be appropriate either, right? Whereas if you go into, say, a dungeon crawler, that's where they may need to be appropriate, right? Like when you're playing Mario Kart, every single character is balanced in the same way that they're all equal, right?
Yeah.
And that's
speed,
fine.
acceleration,
there's not like Ramfire can't be faster, his missiles can't be more powerful than say an Atlas with his water gun or on the back with his turrets or whatever. But at the same time, we want that with the Mario Kart style racer game, the cartoon racer, but we don't necessarily want that with maybe the dungeon crawler, right? Like if you have a Ramfire that's that tier 5 and it's stage 3, you should be able to take that in, and that should be more powerful when you're combining with your friends and you're going into those PvP raids. You want to be able to say, Jesus, we need Annie in this because he's got that ram fire, and the only way that we can beat this boss is if we have him playing with us today. So like, don't go to work today, dude. We've got a massive raid on. Let's go in. So there are some games where we will literally equalize the stats. And if you look at Arena, same thing, right? You can get a really powerful character that's the same character, right? You can find a squiz that's got super powerful stats, and then you can get really, really unlucky and get a squiz that's got terrible stats. That's just the randomized, and it makes it a lot more fun when you're capturing things. But when you go into the arena, the ranked mode, it's all equalized, right? We want it to be a level playing field. So there are some cases where games will need to have equalized stats, or essentially no stats at all. Just you have that character, you get that racing car. But then there's going to be other games where it is appropriate, and that's when those stats will not change, because we don't want someone to feel like they've gone out and they've got this really powerful character, but then they go into the space exploration game and all of a sudden their ship is terrible, because we've just changed it up on them.
Balance issues. Yeah, that makes sense.